Alright, hey guys, so today I'm going to be installing my ASR rear sway bar. It is 24 millimeters thick, so it's pretty beefy and pretty heavy, but it's really nice, and the mounts that come with it are billet aluminum, so I'm pretty excited. Now, first what we're going to do is kind of put together our sway bar end links, and I'm using Blox sway bar end links, but you can use the ASR ones or other ones. Just try and do your research and make sure they're compatible with whatever control arm and sway bar you're using. Okay, so your sway bar end links are really easy to put together. This one is done. As you can see, the male end and the female end are perpendicular to each other. They're facing opposite ways. Now, to get that, all you need to do is screw this locking nut all the way up tight on the male end so it doesn't screw anymore. Then screw the female end all the way up tight as far as you can go. And as you can see, it's almost perpendicular. It's a little bit off, so I'm going to back off this female end so it's perpendicular, and then I'm going to loosen up this locking nut and screw it down to lock. Let me get that. So there you go. Once you're not dumb like me, you can get that locked in there and 90 degrees to each other. Just make sure it looks good. And once you got two 90 degrees perpendicular to each other, then we can start putting the bolts in and figuring out the actual sway bar. Alright, so once you got your end links figured out, you're going to want to jack up your car, put it on jack stands, and get ready to actually install the sway bar, the bushings, and the end links. Next, you're going to want to locate where the actual bushing goes. So you're going to need to remove this bolt and this bolt up top if you already had the subframe brace installed, and it'll bolt up like this. Now, just keep in mind when you're putting this top bolt in that there is, I'm not sure if you can see it right there, there's a brace, the subframe brace that goes on the back side. So just make sure that this top bolt is threading into that brace when you're putting your bushings on. So yeah, now let's grease it up. So before you put any bushings on, you always want to make sure to grease them up good. That will prevent any squeaking or premature sort of like wear and tear. So get the outside of it, the inside of it, and you should be good. Now that you got your bushing all greased up, you can see it opens up at the top here. You're going to want to slide it on to your sway bar right at the end of this stopper here, and put the fat side towards the outside. So just gonna slip it on. And slide it down. Alright, so you'll know you've got your sway bar bushings on right when the arrows on the brackets face out and you can see the ASR logo. So they're going to face out both sides, and the larger part of the bushing is going to go against this metal ring on the edge. Then once you've got that, we can bolt it up to the subframe there. If you're doing this by yourself, I'd recommend lifting up your sway bar and getting the top bolt in one side, just barely get it started, get it threaded so it's nice and loose still, and then get the other side top bolt threaded in. Tighten it down a little bit, definitely don't torque it down, and then put your bottom two in there. Everything should still be loose, and then you can kind of suck it tight. I wouldn't go tight all the way yet because you're going to need to put on the end links, and you may still need a little bit of movement and adjustability to get those end links on, so I wouldn't tighten everything down quite yet. But now let's move on to the end links now that you got your sway bar bolted on there. So next you're going to want to attach the female part of your end link to the back side of your control arm with a small spacer on either side. So it's going to look like this: the bolt, the spacer, end link, the female side of the end link, and then another spacer. And then this is going to tilt up and go into the sway bar. Then for the top portion, you're going to have your bolt, a spacer, the male side of the sway bar end link, and then the large spacer, and then it can go through either of the holes on the sway bar. For less stiff suspension, you want to put it towards the front bolt, towards the front of the, or the front hole, towards the front of the car. If you want stiffer suspension, you're going to put it in the rear hole. So once you got that, you can tighten up this bottom bolt, and then we're going to do the other side before tightening up the top. All right, so I actually have Blox instead of ASR Endlinks, and I found out that the bolt threads in too far if you have both these small spacers on the bottom. So I actually put the two small spacers on top, and that gives me enough thread for the bolt or the nut to go all the way on top. And then on the bottom, I have the big spacer against my lower control arm, and then I have the small spacer against the head of the bolt. So that works out how it's supposed to. So now, before tightening everything down, I'm going to make sure I get both sides taken care of. Once you got your end links kind of snugged up, you're going to come back to these bushings, and you're going to torque each one of these bolts to 19 foot-pounds. Once you get your front mounts torqued down to 19 foot-pounds, you're going to want to torque down this bottom bolt and the top bolt to 16 foot-pounds. Okay, so once you're all done, you should have an awesome looking rear end like this, and you can drop it down and see how much better it handles. So I'm going to take it for a rip. In conclusion, it drives awesome, and you guys should definitely do this sway bar upgrade. It's really noticeable, and you can take corners pretty dang fast. So if you guys like the video, feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching.